Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Daily Coin. My name is Rory, and I have the very distinct honor and great pleasure of welcoming back to the show once again the president and CEO of First Majestic and the chairman of First Mining Finance. And of course, I'm talking about Mr. Keith Neumeyer. Keith, how you doing today?
Oh, excellent, Rory. Thanks for making the time in your day as well.
Well, I certainly appreciate you being here, and just want to jump right in, and I want to start with the economy, if that's okay. And it seems like everything is kind of still moving south, and not things aren't improving at all. We've got negative interest rates, we've got zero interest rates, we've got QE that's continuing to fail, and Japan just announced at the G20 that they were going to continue on steady as she goes.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you see this playing out over the rest of the year? I mean, the Fed keeps coming out with, we're going to raise rates, we're not going to raise rates. I mean, can they raise rates at this point from your perspective?
It did raise rates. It may, drop gold by, whatever amount for one day, but, they'd be creating a huge buying opportunity. Increase in rates will also probably collapse the stock market as well. So there's lots of reasons why it won't happen, but governments do stupid things, and they seem to really want to keep this dangling in front of everyone's face, just to keep this uncertainty going. And I'm not quite sure what their strategy is, but it is a pretty crazy world whereby everyone's just hanging on their edge, wondering what the heck the Federal Reserves are going to do around the world. It's just a nutty system.
Yeah, the central banks seem to be losing some of the citizens around the world seem to be losing confidence in central banks around the world. And that doesn't bode well for any of the currencies that are out there. And so now they're talking about either moving to a cashless society, or Sweden is already pretty much, if not 100%, a cashless society. I mean, how would that play out? I mean, how would that even be possible for the United States and Canada in particular? How would they be able to move to a cashless society? I mean, is that possible?
Oh, I think the governments of Europe probably have more control over their citizens than in the West, or in the United States or Canada. Or at least I hope that's the case. I think that there would be probably revolutions on the street. If the governments tried to take cash away from people. It's to have money in your pocket. It gives you some kind of freedom of movement, and you go to McDonald's, and you don't need to worry about if your card is going to work, or the internet's up or down. You can have the internet down, and all of a sudden you can't spend any money. Like, what kind of world is that? So we need cash in our pockets to keep everything moving, in my view. And if the governments are going to start taking that kind of control over their citizens, then I think that's the end of government. I don't think government will be around in its current form for any real length of time if governments around the world decide to put those kinds of shackles on their citizens.
Yeah, because once you go cashless, then all sovereignty, individual human sovereignty, is gone. It's erased at that point.
Yeah.
And as Gerald Celente says, when you have nothing left to lose, that's when you lose it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think I would agree wholeheartedly. I think that there would be an uprising that would be out of control very quickly. And I understand that you have a new project on your desk, and that's the Silver One Resources, and that trades under the symbol on the Toronto Venture Exchange under SVE, and in the U.S. under SLVRF. Can you give us a little catch up on what you got going on with Silver One?
Yeah, look, I'm not involved in management, but First Mining was approached by a group that wanted to form a silver exploration company. Of course, being silver exploration, I'm quite interested in that, and these these assets originally came from First Majestic Silver, who spun them out to First Mining Finance, for stock. And First Majestic owns a big position in First Mining Finance, and now First Mining Finance spun these three projects out to Silver One. So now First Mining Finance owns a big position in Silver One, and I decided to put some money in myself. I'd become a significant shareholder of Silver One, and it's run by some pretty good guys that have a lot of experience in the mining sector. I've known a couple of them for quite some length of time, and I'm happy to be an investor. I see the stock has done okay for it only being public for a week. It's been weak over the last couple of days just due to the weakness in the area. But for your listeners that are interested in looking for silver exploration, there's very few true silver exploration companies out there. So it's one that people should really look at.
And you say that they're an exploration company at this point?
That's right. The assets, they originally came from First Majestic, which is obviously a
Gotcha.
very, very focused production company, and they weren't getting the the investment required to really advance them. And the projects have metal in the ground. We know there's mineralization there. It's just a matter of how much and so on. So they need to put together an exploration program, which I know they are right now. Putting together a program. I expect they'll be drilling in the next 2 to 3 months, and hopefully they've got some success and they could build some interesting silver projects.
My guess is that they probably will, just because you're involved with them. You seem to have the Midas touch over there.
Well, look, I as a significant shareholder, I'll help when I can. I'll point them in the right direction. There's some other assets I know they're looking at, potentially to acquire as well. So, it's early stages. They've only been public for a week. So, it's something you have to just, I think, give them a chance to get the business going. It's a very, very new company, and there's lots of things that need to happen in order to build a big company, obviously. But there's a great group of people there that are doing it and running the show. And of course, as I said, I'll help out when I can.
There you go. I see nothing but success for them. And you mentioned that this was acquired from First Mining Finance, and it's no secret that I'm a huge fan of that business model and your involvement, and you're the chairman of First Mining Finance. And what do they have going on over there, Keith, that we need to know about or should know about?
It's what First Mining has achieved as a company has not ever been achieved anywhere in the world. At least in the 34 years I've been in this business, I've never seen a public company in 13 months take out 8 other public companies. It was just a phenomenal thing that we did. And First Majestic bought one company in 2015, this Silvercrest company, which has the Santa Elena silver mine in it. But First Mining bought 8 companies in 13 months, and I took it public in April of 2015. We had 18 projects in the portfolio, but they're all brownfields and greenfields projects. They have, of course, mineralization, and they're all exciting projects in themselves, but none of them had actual 43101 compliant gold ounces in the ground that we could point at. So we basically launched on a program to go after several of the targets that we had identified prior to First Mining going public, and we went after them very, very aggressively, and we were very successful in acquiring several companies. And now today we've got 28 projects in our portfolio. That's a lot of projects for any company. So now we have to take a step back. The prices of many of these assets have gone up a lot. So, it's becoming almost cheaper to drill a hole today than it is to go buy gold ounces. Before we were buying gold ounces at, $10 an ounce in the ground. And, now, First Mining is trading at $25 an ounce of gold. And we're still cheap in my view, because most of our peer group members are trading in the $75 to $100 an ounce range. So I think there's considerable upside in the share price, even if gold doesn't really move very much. But, because we grew so quickly, I think that, people probably don't really understand what the heck we've achieved as a business. So we now have to start to tell the story, to upgrade the assets, to unencumber them, build a couple of roads, upgrade the 43-101 resources and reserves, and possibly even do a couple of drill holes and so on. So, the next 12 to 18 months will be focused on just really upgrading the assets and telling the world what we've achieved. And, to have 14 million ounces of gold in the ground, after 13 months, pardon me, of being public, I think is a huge achievement.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. I mean, my goodness, that's more than two properties a month, every month. And now you're planning on upgrading those assets. I mean, to moving them to the next step in order to make them more marketable. I would imagine that's the goal, right?
Yeah, for sure. The 28 projects that we have, we're gonna they're all slightly different. Some are lower priority, some are very much high priority. We just did a JV, as I said, with Silver One. We sold them 3 of the silver assets, and that's the plan to continue with that program. But the larger, more immediate assets with where all the gold is sitting, that's really where the big value is going to lie for First Mining in the future. So we're going to be very careful to hold on to those assets right until we are happy with the value that we're receiving in return for them.
Sounds like a good plan to me. And I wanted to look at First Majestic and as far as their production
Mm-hmm.
and for this year. And uh, I was just reading an article a couple of days ago talking about the gold silver ratio, and the natural physical gold silver ratio is just under 9 to 1, but the
Mm-hmm.
paper is 160 to 1. Do you Are you finding that same ratio within your projects and what you're doing with First Majestic? Are you finding very much gold? And as far as your production for this year within First Majestic, is it up? Is it down? Is it flat? How's that going?
Well, First Majestic is not like any other silver company. So First Majestic is the purest silver company in the world. They're small. When I say that, I mean of the majors, of course, because there
Right.
are small producers out there that are producing 500,000 ounces of silver, which is tiny, and they may be 90% or 95% of the revenue is silver. But for anyone of size, we're basically 20 million ounces of equivalent silver production, of which 70% of that is pure silver, and the rest is in the form of gold, lead, and zinc, and that puts us, as the purest producer, in the world of the big producers. So, that's a pretty unique place to be, and that 9 to 1 ratio that you were referring to is what we're currently mining on a global scale. So all the silver coming out of the ground today, based on gold ounces, is a 9 to 1 ratio. So for every 1 ounce of gold, we're mining only 9 ounces of silver. And the other number you threw out, the 160 number, that's the paper equivalent that
Right.
trade. That's the leverage that's short against the long on the COMEX, and so for every 1 ounce long silver paper, there's 160 ounces pledged for that paper. So the leverage there is ridiculous. And another interesting stat is the just simply the gold silver ratio. When it trades on a daily basis, we're trading at about mid $19 ounce currently. Gold's in the low 13s right now, and that ratio is somewhere around 70 to 1. So my thesis is that how can you be trading at 70 to 1 when you're only mining 9 to 1? And the silver production dropped in 2015 globally. The first time we'd seen that in a long time. Another interesting thing that I find is that when I put together First Majestic Silver 14 years ago, there was a handful of silver companies out there that were legitimately true silver companies. And I look at a silver company as a company that has got at least 70% of the revenue in the form of silver. So you look at Silver Standard, only 20% of the revenue is silver, The rest is in the for a lot. They've got a lot of gold and then other base metals. So how can a company that has only got 20% of their revenues in the form of silver call themselves a silver company? Or, the gold same would go true if a gold company only had 20% of their revenue in gold and calling themselves a gold company. It would still be wrong in my view. So this handful of so-called silver companies have all become basically gold companies or other type of metal companies, whereby their purities have dropped so much that, in my view, they can't even really, or they should not be calling themselves silver companies any longer. But they do, of course, and it does create some confusion in the space. But what that tells me is that the silver mines are much rarer than what people actually think they are. If silver was in fact abundant out there, then there'd be a lot more silver mines around.
Right. But they're not. And I
They're not.
wanted and I wanted to ask you about that. I mean, as far as you obviously are looking at mining production in a whole different way than I ever will in any of my audience. And what do you see as far as over the horizon as far as production is concerned? I mean, because I see a very significant drop in production coming. And these, as you pointed out, silver mines, that were predominantly their profits were predominantly based on the silver that they were pulling out of the ground has now shifted to where it's not, and they're actually not even silver companies any longer. And do you see that trend? How do you see that trend playing out over the next few years?
Well, some of it's got to do with price. At $20 silver, it's tough to make money. Most mining companies have a challenge making money at $20 silver. We're fortunate. We're in Mexico. It's a fairly low cost jurisdiction. We've been very smart in getting our cost structures in line in order to generate profits at current metal prices, and I think we've been better than probably most out there in accomplishing cost cutting measures over the last few years through automation and through many things that we were doing internally to achieve that, and it's starting to pay off now, and then we're actually starting to generate real earnings again, even though silver's only $20. But that's definitely not the entire sector, and there's still companies out there losing money at current metal prices, which is challenging, and so it becomes almost a grade issue. There are mines out there that are very low grade, let's say 30 grams per ton. So 30 grams is approximately an ounce of silver. And to produce a metal or produce a ton of, to extract a ton of ore and produce an ounce of silver from that ton, depending on what part of the world you're in, it could cost anywhere between $50 to $100 a ton to produce 1 ounce of silver. So, you need much higher metal prices to bring some of those lower grade assets online, and that's why I'm so convinced that we need to see triple digit silver, because silver is such a strategic metal that if we're expected to electrify the planet as we're going down the path just to do, bring electric cars and fuel cell cars and solar panels and green energy and all of the things that we're doing as a human race to make our lives better, it's going to require a lot more silver than we're currently mining, and we can't mine the silver at current metal prices. So we need to have silver north of $100 an ounce just to make it economic, just to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish as a human race.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm glad that you brought that up because, as we know, I mean, and I think I've discussed this with you before, these massive projects that China and India and Morocco have going on with solar. And
Mm-hmm.
they're a couple of years into it in China, and they just implemented the program in India about a year ago, and Morocco came online earlier this year. And these are multi-year projects. And I don't know where the silver is going to come from in order to fulfill just these projects. I mean, China has vowed 300 million homes to be uh, operated by solar power. India has said that they're going to match what China's doing, and Morocco, I think, is much smaller, at like 1.1 million homes or something along those lines. I think it's just over a million, and that's a lot of silver. That's a lot of solar panels to power that many homes, and I just I don't know, Keith. I mean, somebody's going to have to help me, and I'm hoping that you can do that to understand how this is going to work out. I mean, I just don't see it.
Well, that's what makes the whole silver space that much interest, or so interesting, because I put together, 14 years is, it seems like just yesterday, but I put First Majestic together 14 years ago, and I predicted $50 silver, which happened, and I didn't predict that silver was going to retest, go back to 13 from 50. I missed that call, but today, I'm confident that just based on what I know of the marketplace, and I see what's happening within the physical market, we do have a major disconnect between price and supply, and it has to correct itself over time, and it will. But often, we can go through periods of imperfect markets for quite a long time until the marketplace eventually does correct the market to be actually true supply demand, or based on true supply demand fundamentals. And I do believe we will get there. And when we do get there, we're going to see the ratio between gold and silver trading closer to 10 to 1. So, whatever your view on gold is, if you're expecting $2,000 gold, then that's $200 silver. It's at $20 silver, it sounds stupid to talk about those kinds of numbers, but at $5 silver, when I first put together, First Majestic, when I was calling for $50 silver, people thought I was crazy. So people think I'm crazy again today for saying what I'm saying, but I think that my thesis is backed by actual true supply demand fundamentals, and I do know there's people out there that disagree with my views and so on, and that's fine. That's what makes a market. But we'll see how the next 3 to 4 or 5 years transpire. But what I'm seeing on the physical side of this industry or this market, I think I'm going to be very, very right.
I think you are too. I mean, at some point, the regulators are going to have to awaken from their slumber and see that something is wrong with the the 70-to-1 ratio on the COMEX, with the gold silver ratio when it's coming out of the ground at right around 9-to-1. That's completely out of balance, and it's just ridiculous. But last question, and then I'll let you get back to your afternoon, Keith.
Sure.
And it's regarding confiscation, and it's not just uh, gold silver confiscation in the traditional sense of somebody knocking on your door and taking your wares, but in the form of pensions that are now on the line. And we see, I've been reporting past few weeks about how these pension funds are all underfunded, and there's no way out for them. And as far as people moving into gold and silver and avoiding that, do you think that they'll just tax it? Do you think they'll shift or make capital gains taxes or whatever kind of tax that they'll implement? Do you see any type of scenario like that in the future, or how do you see everybody's broke? We know that the government is completely broke. These pension funds are broke. So they've got to come up with money somehow to be able to pay the bills and to be able to satisfy these claims. And help me
Well,
to.
Rory, I think in today's environment, I think it's going to be pretty hard for the governments to or confiscate your gold and silver. I just don't think it, worked in the 30s. I just can't imagine it working again. But I wouldn't be at all surprised, because I expect that there will be a reset of some kind, and there's some of your listeners have heard me probably talk about a reset in the past, but and it's hard to really imagine how it's going to look like and when it's going to happen. But in order to eliminate all the government debts, because at some point the governments will just say, "Uncle, we've accumulated so much debt, it's unpayable, and we're all going to get in a room and figure out how we're going to refloat, the world economy, and they're going to come up with a method of doing it, and I wouldn't be at all surprised to see the price of gold reset at a certain level, agreed to by the different governments, the G20 or whatever, and they could pick a price, let's say, just arbitrarily of $10,000 an ounce, and that's why I think that you see China and Russia and many of the other countries around the world buying gold, is because they're in the inner circles they are expecting the same thing that's going to happen, and if you're an owner of physical metal, I think you will be asked by the government, how much metal you have in your possession, and they will tax you on that difference. So we go to bed one day and gold's $2,000. We wake up the next day and gold's $10,000, and you're going to get a bill in the mail for your capital gains on that $8,000. And I think that's going to be a way that the government's going to be able to have a quick hit on cash, for their treasuries, obviously, and it'll also help to eliminate. Well, it will eliminate all the debt on a global basis for the governments.
So is that? I mean, it almost sounds like a debt jubilee that you're talking about. I mean, or am I off base there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I am off base.
No, I think that's I think that's where we have to go.
It's where we have to go. Yeah, I mean that there's been more talk about that, and I just
Like
it's
the governments can't. So how do the governments pay their debts? They can't.
they can't.
Every government around the planet is in great difficulty. We've got deflation. We've got the world population peaking. We've got demographics aging. We've got birth rates dropping. We've got pension government pension funds in desperate straits, and so on and so forth. So I don't know. It's just the governments are running out of places to get capital to finance what they need to finance, and they just can't keep paying the interest that they're currently paying, and that's why we're seeing almost negative interest rates or zero interest rates around the planet, because the governments just couldn't afford to pay the interest at normal rates for the amount of debt that they've accumulated.
Be impossible. So that will keep you in business for a long time to come, because silver is money. It's been money longer than gold, and get physical. That's all I can say. And Keith,
Yeah, but at the same time, Rory, and look, I 100% agree with that. I own physical gold and silver myself. Every year, I buy more gold and silver, and I have been doing it for a long time, and will continue to do it regardless of whatever price it's trading at. But to really get the leverage that you need, or to really increase your net worth, the good quality mining stocks that are run by good management teams that know what they're doing, is I think also a necessary part of people's investment. If they like gold and silver, and they should be looking at at least a couple of good quality mining companies, because that's where you really get the leverage. It's a lot more risky, so people have to be aware of that, obviously, because buying any stock, it's going to come with risk and so on and so forth. But if you're careful and pick the right stocks, you can do. If gold goes up, 10%, stock can easily go up 20-30%. It just, generally speaking, a good mining stock will go up 2 to 3 times higher For every $1 move, I'm saying, gold, the stock will go up 2 to 3 times that amount.
So having some quality stocks should be part of everybody's portfolio in order to offset any of the shenanigans that may come at us from the capital gains taxes on the physical. I mean, if nothing
Mm-hmm.
else.
Yeah, no, that's a good way of putting it as well. For sure.
So
The stocks are going to be more volatile than the metals, so just you have to have the stomach to own shares, obviously, in companies. But I think it's like anything. You need diversity in any decent portfolio.
well, I think somebody that has built two billion-dollar companies and has been quite successful over the past 14 years and has now birthed a third, quite possibly billion-dollar company in First Mining Finance. I think that be well worth taking a look at First Majestic or First Mining and their stock, and I think that it would be to your advantage. So,
Yeah, it's longer than 14 years, Rory. First Majestic's 14 years, but I've been doing this for 34 years. So,
oh, is that all?
yeah, that's all.
Oh.
It feels like yesterday.
Well, Keith, I won't take up any more of your time, and I certainly appreciate all that you've given me and shared with our audience. And you can find Keith over at firstmajestic.com, and he is the CEO over there, and he is the chairman of First Mining Finance, which you can find at firstminingfinance.com. And Keith, give them your Twitter handle so they can follow you over there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, thanks, Rory. It's at Keith_Neumeyer.
You can keep up with everything that he's got going on because he is a serious globetrotter and he's always updating. So, Keith, once again, I certainly appreciate all your time, and I look forward to speaking with you in the not too distant future.
And you have a great weekend, Rory.
Thank you.